is Nicole Rupert from Champagne Kennels. We've had some requests to go over what it is that we supplement our puppies with. This is not my recipe. I originally came from a German Shepherd breeder who has recorded 350 litters using this formula, and then was passed on to me from my mentor who has been using it both as supplementation and on orphan puppies for the last 10 years successfully. It's also been ran past our vet and a reproductive specialist, and everyone seems to think that this is an outstanding formula. We're going to start with a list of ingredients. We're going to make a large batch, which will get you through 2 to 3 days, depending on the size of your litter, if you are having to feed every 2 to 3 hours. One of the first ingredients is nursery water or distilled water. We prefer the nursery. The next ingredient is Karo Syrup. The following is Greek-style plain yogurt. This in particular is 10% milk fat. You want as much fat and calories as you can get. Next we have the goat's milk and eggs. All of the ingredients here we bought from Walmart, so they're not specific to any specific grocery store. Walmart's everywhere. We've pre-measured some of the ingredients just to save time. We're going to start off with the egg. You need to separate 4 egg yolks. There's an enzyme in egg whites that puppies cannot digest, and it can actually cause a vitamin deficiency. So we've pre-separated the 4 egg yolks. We're going to add those to our mixing bowl. The next ingredient is 2 teaspoons of the Karo syrup. This is a good place to stop and start whisking your ingredients together. I would start making this recipe at least an hour, if not several, before you need to use it, so that all of the air bubbles that you're going to create when you're mixing have a chance to settle and rise. The last thing you want to do is pump puppy bellies full of air. You'll have very cranky puppies. Now that we've got the Karo syrup and the eggs mixed in together, you want to start adding in the Greek yogurt. A little bit at a time. You want to do this in small batches so that you don't also create lumps. Whether you're bottle feeding or tube feeding, lumps are not going to make things easy for you. It's also important to note that this is an extremely thick recipe. It will get thinner as we start to add some of the wet ingredient, but it is thick, and believe it or not, it actually smells really good. If anybody's ever tried puppy replacement formulas, the powder, they smell terrible. Puppies generally don't like it. One of the other really good things about this is this can be taken, like I said, if you need to do this for orphan puppies, if you just need to supplement on a mom whose milk is coming in late, or a particularly large litter where she just can't produce enough. You can do that. You can take this formula all the way through weaning, so you never have any digestive issues when you're changing food or adding things. The only thing less entertaining than puppy poop is puppy diarrhea. All right, we've got a pretty thick batch going here. It's actually getting incredibly hard to stir. We're going to start adding little tiny bits of our goat's milk in. Again, small amounts. You don't want the chunks or lumps. Those get stuck in the bottle tips, or they don't go through the tube, or they clog the tube. Many nights in the wee hours, a tube pops off the end of a syringe and I squirt formula all over the walls at 3 a.m. Not really as funny then as it is now. All right, I've actually gotten myself a little bit thin here. I'm gonna need to add the rest of this yogurt in, and kind of carefully so that I don't create those lumps I've been talking about. The full recipe as well as a small batch recipe for this are available on our website. We have an entire educational section there, www.champagnekennels.com. You can call, email, we're always happy to help. But this will be on here, on there as well. This small batch recipe broken down. All right, we have gotten all 4 cups of the yogurt in. Our yogurt's now gone. We can start adding in the rest of this goat's milk. Once we start to get to this point when we're thinning the formula out, it's important to scrape the sides of your bowl on the bottom, or when you finally get done and you're measuring it all out for storage, you'll end up with thick yogurt in the bottom that didn't make it into the rest of the formula. All right, now that we've gotten this relatively liquid, it's still thick, but we don't have as much of a concern for lumps anymore. We can really start pouring this in a lot faster. Now the recipe calls for 40 ounces of goat's milk. These cans come in 12-ounce cans, which leaves you with 36. You need to come up with 4 extra. I've gone ahead and pre-measured that over there in a smaller dish for time's sakes. You can use a kitchen scale, anything that you've got that will give you ounces or grams will work out just fine. As you can see here, all the bubbles that I'm creating as I'm whisking away. This is why you want to give yourself time for it to settle before you feed it to the puppies. That will cause major gas, cranky, colicky puppies, bloat, and even in some cases they can spit up. Spitting up does happen. It's not good though. You can run the risk of aspiration, especially if they're young puppies. Aspiration leads to pneumonia, and pneumonia in a young puppy pretty much always leads to death in 72 hours. All right, last goes in is the missing 4 ounces to bring us to the even 40. And the very last ingredient is the 12 ounces of nursery water. The water, as liquid as this is, the water is an important aspect. If you go under in your water, you can end up with constipation, over, and you end up with diarrhea. Try your best to stick to that 12. It's a good number. All right, the last step is storage. Once you've mixed this batch up, it will hold in the refrigerator for a solid 7 days. Sterilization and freshness, germ-free is a top priority when you've got young puppies. We just buy cheap generic water. We pour the contents out. And we use this container to store in the refrigerator well. This batch will fill a typical Walmart water bottle. You'll get a batch of 4 that are full to the absolute rim, allowing for no extra air, and then one that's about 3/4 of the way full. And there's one complete bottle. And again, you want to fill these as close to the rim as possible. Air is your enemy, not your friend. And there's 2. It's also recommended to me we're currently tube feeding a litter of 10 at the moment. So I'm going through this batch about every 2 days, and I never want to run out, so I end up making a batch while I've still got a bottle or at least half a bottle in the refrigerator. When you've got it all said and done, take a permanent marker and write the date on the lid so that you make sure that you're using the newest first, and then as the puppies start to wean or the mother's milk come in, whatever reason that you're not going through it as quickly, you can make sure that you're not keeping it in the refrigerator for any more than the 7 days. It does say it holds for 7 days. I've personally never had it in the refrigerator that long. It goes pretty quick around here. All right, we're almost done here. We're down to the very last bottle. Again, the recipe, this large batch as well as a singular batch, which calls for a single cup of yogurt if you just don't foresee yourself needing it, is available on our website, www.champagnekennels.com, as well as a ton of other information, a tour of our nursery, a tutorial on tube feeding, and a good way to contact us if you've got any questions. We're happy to help. Usually you start looking for these recipes after the puppies are already born, or it's 3 a.m. and you've got screaming puppies who, you know, are hungry and then you don't know what to do. At any point in time, you can always reach out and contact us. Save our site in your favorites. Pull this back up. It would also be a decent idea to just go ahead and buy all of the ingredients before your puppies are here, just in case. Better safe than sorry. So here we are at the end. We've got the 4 full bottles, full to the rim. The one that's 3/4 of the way full. The entire formula mix costs, I'd say right around $20. A big batch of the puppy replacement costs you $23 to $27 depending on where you buy it. So it's comparable in price, and it is my personal belief that this is a lot better. The fat little puppies I have currently in our whelping box are pretty good proof of that. Again, thank you so much for watching. This is Nicole Rupert from Champagne Kennels.